Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Jesse. Listen to the song Cicatrice by Respire. They're a screamo blackgaze band with chamber music elements from Canada. Something interesting about this. I've heard this song before. Not on my own, even. We've actually listened to it on the channel twice, somehow, in two different live streams back in 2022. We're finally going to get a proper reaction to it. I don't remember a lot about it. I just know that when I was doing the volume check, some of the scenes in the music video were they triggered some memories. I'll put it that way. I was like, wait a second, I've seen this before, and I type it in. Oh, I don't have a reaction to it. That's weird. Must have been a live stream. Sure enough, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see if any of the music triggers any bells to go off. But let's just dive in. See what's going on with Respire's Cicatrice. What? They are very fond of harsh, drastic shifts, aren't they? A little bit of a clock vibe. I mean, they're showing the clocks too, but yeah, strong emo vibes right here, that's for sure. Beautiful development here. The slow burn's working. Is that a trumpet? Turning the vocals into almost a background texture thing. Oh, there's a trumpet. Dude, the retardando into this harmonic release. A good ending to the track. And then just abruptly ends. Okay. Yeah, I don't really remember too much of that musically. I certainly don't remember the screaming like that. Alright, so definitely somewhere between blackgaze and screamo. A lot of the harmonic elements definitely feel very emo-y. We have the higher range screaming in there. The fry screams that are definitely, well, see, the interesting thing is, I think in this environment, my gut says, yeah, this is a very emo style of screaming, but I also don't think it's too far off from the nasally higher pitched black metal screams either. It definitely has a little bit more width to it, giving it more of that core yelling element that I think is more prevalent in screamo than black metal. But the pitch and the style, they kind of bleed over a little bit. It really is about texture and timbre of the scream itself more so than range. That sort of differentiates the two style of harshes. That's not something I ever thought about before. Underneath that, though, we do have some growling, very much a metal style harsh in there, and I think it works well as a sort of uh, like the opposite side of the harsh. We have a really high narrow one, and then we have a really low wide one, and they complement each other rather well. It allows the higher pitch one to have a little bit more presence. It allows the lower pitch one to sort of cut through, and you kind of get this mixed harsh throughout a lot of this track. Now, like I said, harmonically, a lot of emo stuff going on here. Most of the time that we get away from the heavy blast beats, noisy section, and we start looking at more nuanced layering, 100%. This is an emo song through and through. But again, we pair that with blast beats and tremolo picking and, walls of sound, which aren't necessarily that prominent in screamo music. That's something you're going to find more in gaze and black metal. And so the song does sort of dance between the two worlds. I find that it doesn't marry them too often. I really don't know if there's too much of an overlap in the Venn diagram of blackgaze and screamo. Um, they both occasionally, well, screamo occasionally goes into more noisy bits, but not like this, not this type of weighty pressure. That's definitely a blackgaze thing. And so we kind of dance between these two worlds. We try to bring them together a little at the end, having the violin and trumpet playing these more melodic lines on top of this wall of sound and the noise and the textures of the harshes. But ultimately, they're not really playing something very emo-y. I can't really place it. Maybe contemporary classical. as the requester mentioned, Jesse, they said that it kind of brings in some chamber music elements. And yeah, I think I agree. The melody lines from those instruments aren't really emo or metal. So it's a third influence that sort of sits on top of all of this. It's a wild combination of sounds that somehow they ultimately make work, even though, again, it's sort of choosing which side you want to lean into, since I don't think there's a lot of overlap, but ultimately it doesn't really feel like we're swapping between two wildly different ideas either. Everything sort of works. The push and the pull, the high intensity to low intensity moments, the general pacing of the song works rather well. And I think retaining a bit of harmonic information between the sections helps tie them all together as well. There's certainly a lot in here. This could have sounded like a song that was just two different songs smashed together, and it never quite hits that despite the distinction between the two modes that we explore on it. That's an impressive feat right there. To take two genres with almost no overlap and put them together in a way that feels cohesive. I definitely don't want to take that away from them. The instrumentation work on here is totally solid too. I really love a lot of this, whether it's some more harmonic stuff coming out of the guitars or the tremolo picking, the violin melodies, the trumpet melodies, the drumming moving between nuanced ornamental beats versus blast beats, double bass kicks, that rigid Blackened style. The bass having a couple moving lines in here, the variety of harsh vocal styles. There's a lot of distinct ideas going on in this song that, like I said, everybody's got chops. They're bringing it here and sort of presenting this nuanced side on all of it. Every instrument sort of has to dance between two worlds in order to craft these two different sounds. And I think that's pretty awesome. It allows the song to not just be a good showcasing of this style of music, but also I think to be a showcasing of this band's width of skill and showing off a little bit of everything. I would not be surprised if they had even more chops to display that they just didn't have room in this song for. I honestly could see them, if they wanted to, kind of going into a more of a Midwest emo style in some sections, or maybe even bringing in more core elements of the screamo side. I could see them going in that direction. This song just happens to be these two types of music. Even the blackened side, we can even push into different directions as well. I think they have the chops for it. It really is about what the song needs at that point, more so than showing off. Because, there's always so many disparate ideas you could put into a song before it begins to fall apart. So focusing down on ideas, especially trying to merge these two things, is the way to go about it. Now, there's not a lot of melody in here, though, which is something that stuck with me for a while. I really loved that more acoustic buildup in the middle of the song. The first real big emo section, I thought that was wonderful. The slow burn, the layering up of ideas, bringing in the trumpet, I think for the first time, the violin sitting on the outside, and the growth of taking this idea and then incorporating tremolo playing in the violin and the guitar, the drummer becoming more and more intense until it became that wall of sound blackgaze style. That was a really cool progression too. But the only real melody we get out of this is the violin and the trumpet, and they really only dominate the sound in two places. That middle section that eventually moves into the more blackened side, and the finale. Everything else, the spotlight gets put on the vocals, which are texture and rhythm. Now, the vocals, I say, put into the spotlight, they're not as prominent as vocals typically are. They are sort of stuffed into the mix a little bit. In fact, I kind of wish they were a little louder. They get drowned out really quickly. But where I think everything absolutely worked was during that rhythmic section with the vocals. One was semi-clean, and then we had the growls underneath it, and they just had this rhythmic pulse. A little bit of syncopation, but just rigid. Consistently the same thing every 2 bars or something like that. It was a short idea. And the song grew around it until it overlapped it, and you couldn't even hear the vocals anymore. They became a background idea. I think that is one of the times that I think this stuffing the vocals into the mix works really well, because the vocals are in that point present enough, and there aren't a lot of other instruments that you can hear the words. But as we begin to layer other things, they become, like most slow burns, a foundational element. Things are built on top of it. It's really tough to do that when your vocals are in the spotlight. When they are the loudest, most prominent element of your mix, you really can't use them as a foundation at all. And so having them pushed into the mix here allows them to be disguised once other layers are put on top. I thought that was genius. A really great way to use this production style in a way that makes sense, rather than just as a technique of your sonic identity. There's a lot of bands, you just stuff the vocals in. That's just who they are. That's the sound they like to make. But I really like it, at least from this perspective, feels like a compositional decision. And I like that. But aside from those moments with the violin and trumpet, not a lot of melody on here. This is really an atmosphere song, an emotion kind of song. And yeah, I mean, I get it. Beautiful moments, there's aggressive moments. It feels overwhelmingly aggressive through most of it. And so, like, where does this put me? I don't know what the song is really saying. We seem to sweep back and forth between beauty, like traditional beauty, and aggressive weight with abandon. And the swings are very abrupt too. It's one of the things I said at the beginning, is they really like these sharp, distinct shifts. We do have that nice growth over the middle, but that's the only time we really see any sort of attempt to bring the lighter side and the heavier side together somewhere in the middle. Everything else is, we were doing this light stuff, now we're doing the heavy stuff. And I don't know. It doesn't really say much to me, which probably says more about me than the song. It just feels beautiful one moment and aggressive the next. And what does that represent? I think the fact that there is less melody than I would like is also something that kind of puts the song at arm's length for me. I enjoy what they're doing, and I think there's a part of me that wants to check out more, but I'm not sure I would enjoy it. It's more of a curiosity thing at this point, which I think is different than when we checked them out back in 2022, and I wanted to find more of them. Something about it clicked for me then that isn't now. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I'm still vaguely curious about their sound, and I think that they have a lot of room to explore too. But I think ultimately, especially with the harsh vocal styles, it's going to be something that's not necessarily for me. Let me check out some lyrics to this, and then we're going to wrap this one up. I think this song is about humanity's inability, recently anyways, to co-align with the planet. It talks about humanity as a disease, like a cancer, that is causing the earth to perish, but that eventually the earth will fight back and destroy us and heal itself, which is where the idea of scars come in, which is what a cicatrice is. It's just another word for a scar. And so we inflict wounds on the earth, but it will heal. It will heal over a little differently. Scar tissue. We'll be able to see the places where we wounded the earth, but it will heal after it removes us. I think that's what this song is about. Now let me support this a little bit, because there's a lot of wild things in here that went over my head a couple of times. The second stanza says, "We live on just to bleed, we fight on to die." The second vocalist says the earth's disease, millions will perish. It calls this a suicide. I think that's an interesting idea. We need the planet to survive, but if we wound the planet and kill it, we won't have a way to live. We are effectively ruining our ability to live on this planet, which is going to take our lives. In a sense, it is suicide with a lot of extra steps in between. It's an interesting way to word that. During that section that I mentioned was heavily rhythmic, where the vocals eventually got covered up by the rest of the instrumentation, it says that the life drains fast like sand falls and the dream dies fast like cancer. We try in vain, but our hearts won't beat in time. And I had mentioned the idea of the clocks visually in the music, but also in that third section, there was probably a cross-stick idea that sounded like the ticking of a clock. This idea right here, this is the same section, I believe. The idea of making our hearts beat in time, of allowing us to feel in sync with not only those around us, but with the planet itself. Basically, for our intentions to align with the planet's health and well-being. It talks about rotting out the last of the old roots that gave us first life, that we kiss those roots in vain. We try to make a show out of supporting it while also watching them decay. It says at the very end, we are the disease. We destroy, we are destroyers. We are cursed against the tide. So it says, for all of that, bring down the guillotines and let it turn to dust. So I think the general idea here is just push the earth to its breaking point until it turns back on us. It says, I turn over to rapture and I leave myself to dust, dissolve, and abandon. Cicatrice by Cicatrix, which is an interesting. They both just mean scar. Just saying scar by scar in a more verbose way. Says it goes on. The earth in life through death. So, scar by scar, all of these wounds that we inflict to the earth after it turns on us and destroys us, it will heal. Scar by scar, it'll take time, but it will heal back up. And through death, the earth will find life, through our death. I'm pretty sure that's what the song's saying here. It says, reborn, rejoice. That's the very final line. The earth can be reborn again and we can be happy for it. I think screamo and honestly the blackgaze part, it kind of works for this. I mean, emo's typically pretty good at conveying strong senses of maybe nostalgia, but like a longing for the past, not necessarily in a nostalgic way, but like a pensiveness and sorrow. And I think that this sort of being sad for the way the world is today, that's captured a lot in those more atmospheric, layered sections. But then the aggression, the hatred, the anger at the way things are is represented very well with that overwhelming weight of the black gaze parts and the screaming and all of that. It's slightly nuanced, even if they are splitting the emotions out rather than trying to find music that combines them and create something a little more complex. It still captures, I think, the vibe of both sides really well. But those are just my thoughts on Respire's Cicatrice, which this is finally third time's a charm. We get a full reaction on this. What do you think of it, though? Did anything stand out to you? Is there anything you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you have your own interpretation or opinion on it. Please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.